Scandal engulfing New York Congressman Anthony Weiner. The unseemly state of affairs, frankly, got a lot worse over the weekend with the release of yet another batch of embarrassing photos. CBS News congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes has the latest on Weiner's struggle to keep his job as members of his own party are calling on him to resign. Nancy, good morning.
Erica, good morning to you. And there are reports out of New York this morning that Congressman Weiner is now exploring at least the possibility of stepping down. This after that new batch of photos came out over the weekend and Democratic leaders said publicly for the first time that he should go.
The new photos released by the website TMZ show the congressman in various stages of undress at a gym on Capitol Hill reserved only for House members. Over the weekend, the married New York congressman said he was taking a short leave of absence from Congress to get evaluated and map out a course of treatment to make himself well at an unidentified facility. If Weiner hoped his decision to seek help would quell the calls for him to step down, it didn't.
We've got to get this behind us because it's a distraction. And so, yes, he should resign. I don't take pleasure in saying that because we've got important work to do, and this is just a ridiculous distraction.
Even more problematic for the embattled congressman, Democratic leaders in the House of Representatives finally broke their silence, urging him to resign in a series of coordinated statements. They called his actions sordid and indefensible.
This is bizarre, unacceptable behavior.
The number 2 House Democrat, Steny Hoyer, told Face the Nation's Bob Schieffer that Weiner, who has refused to go, should reconsider.
It seems to me extraordinarily difficult that he can proceed to represent his constituents in an effective way, given the circumstances, this bizarre behavior.
Behavior that has opened the congressman up to endless mocking, even by Weiner's own colleagues. This was Speaker John Boehner in a commencement address at Ohio University this weekend.
You know, my name looks like Beaner, Bonner, Boner. Thank God it's not Weiner.
It may be funny for Republicans, but Democrats feel that this scandal is completely overshadowing their agenda, and that's why they're asking him to go now when they're coming back into session after a week-long break. Erica?
Nancy, stay with us for a minute. We do want to check in with you again in just a second. We are joined now by CBS News Chief Washington Correspondent and host of Face the Nation, Bob Schieffer, as well as CBS News Political Correspondent Jan Crawford. Good to talk to both of you in person this morning. Bob, I want to start with you. As Nancy mentioned, there are reports out of New York. Of course, Congressman Weiner is from New York. He represents New York. That he may finally be considering a resignation. Based on everything that we've seen, everyone calling for him to step down, how much longer, realistically, could he hold on?
Well, I mean, they can put machinery in motion to try to force him out. They can do a lot of things to bring pressure on him. The easiest thing for everybody, and you know, from Democratic leaders, the head of the Democratic Party, everyone from top to bottom, is that he would go voluntarily. They have got to get this over with. I mean, this is beyond just a sex scandal here. I mean, this is sort of an electronic version of a flasher. I mean, these latest pictures are disgusting and despicable. Nobody wants to go into the next election saying they are somehow or other protected of someone like this. Is he sick? You know, doctors will decide that. But Democrats need to get him on the road and out of there. This is Paul Ryan, a Republican, and a very moderate, you know, of a guy who actually is a friend of Mr. Weiner, said yesterday, this is reflecting now on the entire institution. They need to get this wound up.
And he went so far, as we heard in Nancy's piece, to call it a ridiculous distraction. Jan, frankly, this is a distraction on all sides at this point to any sort of political process here.
Well, yeah, I mean, as Congressman Ryan said on Bob's show yesterday, it's reflecting now on the institution. This is not, I mean, you got Boehner making jokes about this. This is not funny. I mean, I don't think the American people find this funny. You've got Congress approval ratings at their lowest ever. I mean, stop. I mean, listen to what we're talking about here and what this guy has admitted doing. Only in Washington would this kind of thing play out like it has. If Anthony Weiner worked for a private employer or employer like every other American in this country, he would have either been fired immediately or suspended while they did some kind of internal investigation into what was happening. You know, I mean, think about what he's admitted doing. He sent photographs to women he didn't know. He took pictures of himself in the workplace. And now it's come out that he's been emailing privately with the high school girl that he met on a field trip. I mean, that is serious. If he were working like all the rest of us, he would have been out the door 2 weeks ago.
Erica, if this were a high school student who got caught doing what he did, he would have been expelled before dark on the day that he did it.
Why does it? Why does it take so long in Washington? I mean, Americans are so fed up with lawmakers as it is. Why should anyone in Washington be allowed to continue?
Well, I mean, there are processes that you have to go through. But the other part is, when it first happened, people in his own party were hoping it would go away. That's what always happens in Washington.
He lied about it. He lied to
he lied to the leaders about it. So that's part of what happened here. But they should have gotten on this before they did.
And also, can I just say, too, I mean, the problem for Washington is if he'd been working for anyone like we all work and or for our employers, he would have been gone. But here there is no liability. Anthony Weiner works for the people, and yet there's no liability.
Well, Nancy, one of the things a lot of people have been increasingly talking about is, of course, what his constituents have to say. We're hearing more of them speaking out. In terms of actually forcing him to step down, though, Nancy, could it actually happen that he's forced out?
Well, that would be very difficult, Erica. All the members would have to vote that he should go, and that's pretty unlikely. What senior aides to Democratic leaders told us over the weekend is that the reason that they waited so long to ask him publicly to leave was that behind the scenes, quietly, they were urging him to leave, and they were hoping that he would do it voluntarily. That's typically what members of Congress do in these situations. Often they do it very quickly after just a day or two because they can't stand the heat. But he was standing firm. Then he announced that he was going to seek treatment. He may have thought that would push them off a bit, but it didn't. And just a few hours after he said he was going to seek treatment, they announced they wanted him to leave altogether.
Nancy, thanks. Nancy Cordes, Bob Schieffer, and Jan Crawford. Good to be with all of you this morning here in Washington.